They said Jonas Blackwood had a heart forged from iron ore and veins running with glacier melt. He was a man who'd survived 3 winters trapped in a mountain cabin with nothing but jerky and will, and rumor had it his silver mine produced enough ore to buy Wyoming 3 times over. Every available woman in Redemption Creek, widows, daughters, even a few wives whose husbands weren't watching closely, found reasons to cross his path. They thought wealth and beauty were enough to claim a mountain man's fortune. They were wrong. They didn't know Jonas Blackwood wasn't looking for decoration or companionship. He was looking for someone who understood that family isn't built on blood, it's built on choice. This is the true story of how the hardest man in the territory looked at 7 starving children and their exhausted mother and saw not burdens, but the family he'd been searching for his entire life. Redemption Creek, Wyoming Territory. November 1884. The courthouse smelled like unwashed bodies, tobacco spit, and desperation. It was the kind of November day where the cold seeped through the walls and settled into your bones, and the pot-bellied stove in the corner did nothing except make the air slightly less fatal. The room was packed. Not because people cared about justice or civic duty, but because watching other people's misery was free entertainment, and in Redemption Creek, entertainment was scarce. Judge Ezekiel Thornton banged his gavel, a sound like a gunshot that made everyone jump except the woman standing before him. She'd stopped jumping at loud noises months ago, when jumping required energy she no longer had. Her name was Catherine Miller, though most people in Redemption Creek just called her, that poor widow with all those children. She was 31 years old but looked 50. Her dress was patched and repatched, her hands were red and cracked from washing other people's laundry, and her eyes held the particular exhaustion that comes from trying to feed 7 mouths on wages meant for 1. Behind her, arranged in descending height like a staircase of suffering, stood her children. Thomas, 14, tall and gangly, with his father's dark hair and his mother's stubborn jaw. He stood straight despite the hunger gnawing his belly, one protective hand on his youngest sibling's shoulder. Margaret, 12, with honey-colored braids and eyes that had seen too much too soon. She held baby William, just 18 months old, on her hip, even though he was getting too heavy for her thin arms. The twins, Samuel and Sarah, 10 years old, identical in their hunger and their defiance, standing so close their shoulders touched. Emma, 8, with missing front teeth and a dress that had been Margaret's 3 years ago and Thomas's shirt before that. And little James, 6, clutching a wooden horse his father had carved before the mine collapse that had killed him and left this family destitute. 7 children. 7 mouths. 7 reasons Catherine Miller couldn't sleep at night. Mrs. Miller, Judge Thornton said, his voice carrying the particular blend of pity and impatience that characterized men who'd never gone hungry. We've been over this. You owe Mr. Rutherford 6 months' rent. That's $60. Plus interest, that brings the total to $72. Do you have $72? Catherine's voice was barely above a whisper. No, Your Honor. Can you acquire $72? No, Your Honor. Rutherford stood from his seat in the front row, his belly straining against his waistcoat. Your Honor, if I may. The court's time is valuable. Mrs. Miller clearly cannot meet her obligations. I propose we move directly to the settlement arrangements. Judge Thornton sighed. Very well. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Rutherford has generously offered to forgive your debt under the following conditions. Your children will be placed with families willing to take them in. You will work off the remaining debt through labor assignment at Mr. Rutherford's laundry facility. Once the debt is cleared, approximately 18 months of labor, you'll be free to attempt to reclaim custody, if the children's new families are willing to release them back to you. 18 months. Catherine's voice cracked. She grabbed the railing in front of her to keep from collapsing. Your Honor, they're my children. You can't separate them. Please. I'll work harder. I'll find more work. You'll what? Rutherford interrupted, his voice oozing false concern. Mrs. Miller, you're already working 14 hours a day at the laundry. You take in sewing at night. You're doing everything humanly possible and it's still not enough. The children are suffering. He gestured to them with theatrical sympathy. Look at them, Your Honor. They're starving. Little James can barely stand. Baby William coughs all night, I can hear him through the walls of my building. Thomas is skin and bones. This isn't sustainable. This is cruelty disguised as motherhood. Catherine's hands trembled. They're not starving. We eat every day. Maybe not much, but... When did Thomas last have meat? Rutherford pressed. Catherine's silence was answer enough. When did any of them have new clothes? Rutherford continued. Margaret's wearing a dress that's more patched than original fabric. The twins share a single pair of boots, one wears them to school one day, the other the next. Emma's dress used to be Thomas's shirt, for God's sake. This is poverty, Your Honor. Grinding, damaging poverty. And these children deserve better. Thomas, unable to contain himself any longer, spoke up. We don't need better. We need to stay together. Sir, please. I can work. I'm 14. I'm strong. I can. You're a child, Rutherford said, turning to face him. You should be in school, not offering to labor like a mule. I'm offering to help my mother. Your mother needs help that you can't provide, Rutherford said, his voice softening in a way that somehow made it more cutting. Son, I know you think you're the man of the house. But you're not. You're a boy. And boys need to be raised properly, in homes that can afford to feed them and clothe them and educate them. Mr. Garrison has offered to take you. He runs the mine operation. Good, honest work. You'll learn a trade. Build a future. I want to stay with my family, Thomas said, his voice breaking. Sometimes, Rutherford said, turning back to the judge, what children want and what they need are different things. Judge Thornton looked pained. He'd presided over his share of difficult cases, but breaking up families never got easier. Mrs. Miller, I understand your desire to keep your children with you. But the law is clear. If you cannot provide adequate food, shelter, and clothing, the court has an obligation to place the children in situations where those needs can be met. They're being met, Catherine said desperately. Maybe not lavishly, but they're met. We have a roof over our heads. We have. You have one room, Rutherford interrupted. One room in a boarding house. 8 people in one room. The children sleep on the floor. There's no privacy. No space. It's squalid, Mrs. Miller. And winter is coming. That room has cracks in the walls. How will you keep them warm? Catherine had no answer. Because he was right. The room was inadequate. The walls did have cracks. And she had no idea how they'd survive winter. Judge Thornton shuffled through papers on his bench. I have applications from several families willing to take children. Let's review the placements. No, Catherine whispered. Then louder, no. Please, Your Honor. Please don't do this. But the judge continued, reading from the papers. Thomas Miller, age 14, to be placed with Garrison Mining Company for labor and training. Room and board provided in exchange for work. Margaret Miller, age 12, to be placed with the Rutherford household as junior housemaid. Room, board, and small wages provided. Margaret gasped. Working for the man who was tearing her family apart. The man whose greed had brought them to this moment. The twins, Samuel and Sarah Miller, age 10, to be placed with the Redemption Creek Orphanage until suitable families can be found. An orphanage? Catherine's voice was anguished. They're not orphans. They have a mother. A mother who cannot care for them, Thornton said gently. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller. I truly am. But the law. The law is wrong. Thomas shouted. Several people in the courtroom gasped at the outburst. The law says we have to be torn apart because we're poor. That's not justice. That's cruelty. The bailiff moved toward Thomas, but Judge Thornton waved him back. Young man, I understand your anger. But this court operates under territorial law. I don't have discretion to. Then territorial law is broken. Thomas said, tears streaming down his face. We're a family. We take care of each other. We don't need charity. We just need to be left alone. You need food, Rutherford said sharply. You need clothes. You need medicine for that baby who coughs all night. You need things your mother cannot provide. And refusing help out of pride is not noble, boy. It's stupid. The cruelty of the word, stupid, hung in the air. Catherine flinched as if she'd been slapped. Margaret began crying quietly. Emma buried her face in the twins' shoulders. James clutched his wooden horse so tightly his knuckles went white. Only baby William was oblivious, sucking his thumb and playing with Margaret's hair. Judge Thornton cleared his throat. Continuing with placements. Emma Miller, age 8, to be placed with the Henderson family. They have a farm and are looking for help with lighter chores. James Miller, age 6, to be placed with the church orphanage until a suitable family can be identified. And baby William Miller, 18 months old, to be placed with the Whitmore family, who have experience with young children and have lost a child of similar age. Each name was a knife in Catherine's heart. Each placement a piece of her soul being torn away. When, she whispered. When do I have to? Immediately, Rutherford said. The families are waiting outside. We've arranged transportation. The children can be settled in their new homes by nightfall. Tonight? Catherine's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Thomas hadn't caught her. You're taking them tonight? Best to make it quick, Rutherford said. Clean break. Dragging it out only makes it harder. Thomas held his mother, this woman who'd kept them alive through sheer force of will, and felt something break inside him. They were being torn apart like property being divided. Like they weren't people who loved each other. Like family was just a word instead of the only thing that mattered. Your Honor, Thomas said, his voice steadier now, cold with fury. When I'm old enough, when I have money, I'm going to come back to this courtroom. And I'm going to make sure no other family goes through what we're going through right now. I'm going to change these laws. I swear it. Judge Thornton looked at the boy, really looked at him. Saw the intelligence behind the anger. The determination behind the tears. I hope you do, son, Thornton said quietly. I truly hope you do. But today, I must enforce the law as it exists. Unless. He paused, looking out at the courtroom. Unless there are any objections. Any alternative solutions. Anyone willing to step forward? Silence. The crowd that had come for entertainment shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Helping was expensive. Helping required sacrifice. And in a hard territory full of hard people, most had learned to protect their own interests first. Judge Thornton raised his gavel. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I declare these placements. From the back of the courtroom, a voice like stones grinding, I have a solution. Every head turned. The crowd parted, not because anyone asked them to, but because the man walking down the center aisle was the kind of presence that made people move instinctively, like cattle sensing a wolf. Jonas Blackwood was 6 feet 4 inches of mountain-hardened muscle and weather-beaten resolve. He wore the clothes of a working man, wool pants, cotton shirt, leather vest, all clean but worn from use rather than poverty. His hair was the color of iron, worn long and tied back, and his face was all hard angles and harder experience. His eyes were the pale blue of glacier ice, and they missed nothing. He walked to the front of the room and stopped beside Catherine Miller. He didn't look at her. He looked at the judge. "Your Honor," Jonas said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I'll pay the debt." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Thornton banged his gavel. "Mr. Blackwood. This is irregular. What's your interest in this matter?" $60, Jonas said. He pulled a leather pouch from his coat and set it on the judge's bench with a heavy thunk. "Paid in full. Plus the court costs. Whatever they are." Thornton opened the pouch, saw the gold coins inside, and his eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. This is more than sufficient. But Mr. Blackwood, paying someone's debt doesn't. "I'm not finished," Jonas interrupted. "The debt is paid. The eviction is voided. But Mrs. Miller still can't feed 7 children on laundry wages. So here's what I propose. She and her children come work for me. I need help at my operation. She can cook, clean, manage the household. The older children can help with chores appropriate to their age. In exchange, I provide room, board, and wages. Fair wages. Enough to build savings." The whispers became a roar. Catherine stared at Jonas like he'd sprouted wings. Judge Thornton frowned. "Mr. Blackwood, that's generous. But taking in a widow and 7 children is quite different from hiring a cook. Perhaps you don't understand the commitment." "I understand perfectly," Jonas said. His eyes finally moved to Catherine and her children. He studied each face, each expression. Thomas's suspicion. Margaret's desperate hope. The twins' uncertainty. Emma's fear. James's exhaustion. Baby William's oblivious thumb-sucking. "I understand that these are people, not problems. I understand that every child deserves to eat. I understand that breaking up a family because they're poor is cruelty disguised as charity." He turned back to the judge. "Do we have a deal?" Thornton looked at Catherine. "Mrs. Miller, do you accept Mr. Blackwood's offer?" Catherine couldn't speak. She could only nod, tears streaming down her gaunt face. "Then this case is closed," Thornton announced. "Mrs. Miller, your debt is satisfied. Your family stays together. Mr. Blackwood, you're either the most charitable man in Wyoming or the biggest fool. Time will tell which." As the gavel fell, Catherine collapsed. Not dramatically, there was no swoon or cry. Her legs simply gave out, as if the tension that had been holding her upright for 6 months had suddenly snapped. Jonas caught her before she hit the ground. His large hands were gentle as he lowered her to a bench. "When did you last eat?" he asked. Catherine couldn't answer. She was crying too hard. Margaret, the 12-year-old, spoke up, her voice steady despite the tears on her own cheeks. "Yesterday morning, sir. We gave the children the last of the bread. Mama said she wasn't hungry." Jonas looked at the children, really looked at them. Saw the hollowed cheeks, the prominent ribs, the way they swayed slightly from hunger and exhaustion. "Right," he said. He stood, addressing the crowd that was still gaping at him. "Someone get Dr. Harrison. Tell him I need him at the hotel immediately. Mrs. Weatherby," he looked at a matronly woman in the front row, "I need 8 rooms at your hotel. And I need your kitchen to prepare enough food for 8 people. Soup to start. Nothing heavy. Their stomachs can't handle much yet. Mrs. Weatherby nodded, already moving toward the door. Jonas turned to Thomas, the oldest boy. Can you help your mother walk? Yes, sir. Good. Everyone to the hotel. We'll talk once you've eaten and rested. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command from a man used to being obeyed. And Catherine Miller, still crying, let her son help her stand and followed the mountain man who'd just saved her family. But not everyone in that courtroom was happy about it. Josiah Rutherford, the landlord Catherine had been unable to pay, stood in the back with his arms crossed and his face red with fury. He'd been counting on breaking up that family. He'd already made arrangements to place the oldest boy at his mining operation, free labor disguised as opportunity, and to place the older girl as a housemaid with his sister. The younger children would have gone to the orphanage, where they'd have been farmed out to anyone willing to feed them in exchange for work. Keeping them together didn't serve his interests. And what Jonas Blackwood had just done, swooping in with his gold and his righteousness, had cost Rutherford money and face. Beside him stood his business partner, Samuel Hyde, a rail-thin man with eyes like a weasel and a smile that never reached past his teeth. You going to let him get away with that? Hyde asked. No, Rutherford said quietly. I'm not. Blackwood just made a very expensive mistake. And I'm going to make sure he regrets it. At the Weatherby Hotel, Jonas watched as 8 bowls of beef soup were placed in front of 8 people who looked at them like they were seeing miracles. Eat slowly, he cautioned. Your stomachs have shrunk. Too much too fast and you'll be sick. They ate. Catherine and the children, silent except for the sounds of spoons against bowls, tears falling into soup, small gasps of relief and gratitude. Jonas sat across from them, drinking coffee, watching. Not with pity. Not with judgment. With something else. Something like recognition. When the bowls were empty, scraped clean, every drop consumed, Catherine finally spoke. Why? Jonas took a sip of coffee. Why what? Why did you do this? You don't know us. We're nothing to you. Jonas was quiet for a long moment. Then, 20 years ago, I was Thomas's age. My parents died, cholera. I had 4 younger siblings. No one stepped up. We got split up, sent to different places. I haven't seen them since. Don't know if they're alive or dead. He set down his coffee cup. I swore if I ever had the means, I'd never let another family be torn apart for lack of money. Today, I had the means. So I used them. Thomas, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. That's all this is. Charity. Jonas met the boy's eyes, saw the pride there, the suspicion, the fear of becoming an object of pity. No, he said bluntly. I need help. My operation is successful, but I'm one man trying to do the work of 5. I need a cook. I need someone to manage supplies and accounts. I need hands for work that's too light for me but too heavy for one person. You'll earn your keep. This isn't charity. It's employment. And if we can't do the work? Thomas pressed. Then we'll figure out what work you can do, Jonas said simply. There's always something. And you'll learn. All of you. Margaret, still holding baby William, asked quietly, what about school? Jonas looked at her. Can you read? Yes, sir. Mama taught us. Then you'll keep learning. There's a schoolhouse in Redemption Creek. You and the twins and Emma and James will attend. Thomas is old enough to work, but we'll make sure he keeps up his learning too. Catherine was crying again. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, Jonas said. Wait until you've seen the place. It's not fancy. It's a working ranch. It's rough and it's remote and winters are hard. You might decide this is worse than what you left. Anything, Catherine said with absolute certainty, is better than watching my children be taken from me. Jonas nodded. Then we leave tomorrow morning. Tonight, you sleep in real beds. Tomorrow, we start the rest of your lives. The journey to Jonas's ranch took 2 days by wagon. It was November, and the Wyoming wind cut like knives, but Jonas had prepared. He'd brought thick blankets, and they stopped frequently to warm themselves by fires he built with practiced efficiency. The children were quiet at first, watching Jonas with the wariness of animals that had been hurt before. But slowly, they began to relax. James showed Jonas his wooden horse. Emma told him about the dog they'd had to give away when they lost their house. The twins pointed out clouds and argued about what shapes they saw. Thomas remained suspicious, sitting beside Jonas on the wagon bench, watching his every move. You don't trust me, Jonas observed. It wasn't a question. Should I? Thomas countered. Smart boy, Jonas said. Don't trust anyone until they've earned it. But here's something you can trust, I paid good money for the privilege of employing your family. I'm not in the habit of throwing money away. Which means I have a vested interest in making this work. That's not kindness. That's business sense. Thomas considered this. And when we've worked off the debt? What then? Then you'll have been paid fair wages the whole time, so there's no debt to work off, Jonas said. And you'll have choices. Stay. Go. Find another situation. But you'll make that choice with full bellies and money in your pockets. That's more than most people get. Thomas relaxed slightly. Business, he understood. Charity made him nervous. But business was fair. Business had rules. The ranch appeared on the afternoon of the second day, a sprawling property nestled in a valley between 2 ridges. There was a main house, larger than Catherine had expected, built from logs and stone. A barn. Several outbuildings. Pastures with horses and cattle. A stream running through the property, frozen at the edges but still flowing in the center. It was beautiful. Harsh and wild, but beautiful. The main house has 6 bedrooms, Jonas explained as he helped them down from the wagon. I use one. Catherine, you take the one next to the kitchen, it's warm and you can hear if the baby cries. Thomas can have the room upstairs, north side. Margaret and Emma can share the room facing east, morning sun will help with waking. The twins can take the room next to them. And James, he looked at the 6-year-old, you get the small room next to mine. That way if you're scared at night, I'm right there. James, who hadn't spoken much during the journey, looked up at Jonas with wide eyes. Really? Really, Jonas confirmed. The house was clean but clearly inhabited by a bachelor who prioritized function over comfort. The furniture was handmade but solid. The kitchen was well equipped but disorganized. The bedrooms had beds and little else. I know it needs work, Jonas said. Catherine, once you're settled, we'll go into town and get whatever supplies you need to make this place livable. Curtains, linens, whatever. I've got accounts at the general store. Catherine walked through the house, touching the walls, the furniture, the kitchen table. It was real. Solid. Safe. It's perfect, she whispered. It's a start, Jonas corrected. Now, there's a root cellar out back, fully stocked. Pantry's got basics. I wasn't expecting company, so there's not much variety, but no one's going hungry. Margaret, can you help your mother figure out supper? Thomas, come with me to the barn. I'll show you how I like the animals tended. Rest of you, pick your rooms and get settled." They scattered to their tasks, and for the first time in months, Catherine felt something she'd forgotten: hope. But hope, in the territory of men like Josiah Rutherford, was a dangerous thing. 3 weeks into their stay at the Blackwood Ranch, things had settled into a rhythm. Catherine cooked real meals. Margaret helped with younger children and proved competent at household accounts. Thomas worked dawn to dusk, learning ranching, mining, and survival. The younger children attended school, walking 3 miles each way with lunch pails actually filled with food. Every night, they gathered around the table Jonas had built expecting to eat alone forever, and talked about their days. Jonas found himself smiling more than he had in years. Listening for James's footsteps in the morning. Depending on Catherine's quiet competence and Thomas's growing strength. He'd rescued a family. But it didn't feel like rescue anymore. It felt like something that scared him more than any Wyoming winter: home. But in Redemption Creek, Josiah Rutherford had not forgotten. Had not forgiven. And had been planning his revenge with the patience of a man who'd built an empire on other people's desperation. On the first day of December, as the first serious snow of winter began to fall, a well-dressed stranger arrived at the Blackwood Ranch. He introduced himself as Inspector Gerald Whitmore from the Territorial Child Welfare Bureau, a government body that most people in Wyoming had never heard of because it had been established only 6 months earlier. Jonas met him at the door, immediately suspicious. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Blackwood," Whitmore said, producing official-looking papers. "I'm here to conduct a welfare inspection of the minor children residing at this address. It's routine procedure for any household with more than 4 children not biologically related to the head of household." "They are related," Jonas said flatly. "I adopted them. Legally. The papers are filed with the court." "Yes, I'm aware," Whitmore said with a thin smile. "However, there have been concerns raised. Concerns about the speed of that adoption. About the circumstances. About whether proper procedures were followed." Jonas's jaw tightened. "Who raised these concerns?" "I'm not at liberty to say. But I assure you, this is a matter of public interest. The welfare of children is not something we take lightly." Catherine appeared behind Jonas, wiping flour from her hands. "What's happening?" "This is Inspector Whitmore," Jonas said. "Apparently someone's filed a complaint about our adoption." Catherine's face went pale. "You can't take them. They're ours. We have papers." "The judge." "Mrs. Blackwood," Whitmore interrupted smoothly, "no one is taking anyone. Yet. I'm simply here to assess the living situation and ensure all territorial regulations are being followed. Now, may I come in, or would you prefer I file a report stating that you refused inspection? Because I assure you, that wouldn't reflect well." Jonas stood his ground for a moment longer, then stepped aside. "Fine. Inspect. But touch one of my children and you'll regret it." "Your children," Whitmore repeated, his tone suggesting he didn't believe the relationship was real. "How touching." He walked through the house with a notebook, making notes about everything. The bedrooms, cramped. The kitchen, chaotic. The living area, unsuitable for proper child development. He interviewed the children one by one, asking questions designed to make them uncomfortable. "Do you feel safe here, Thomas?" "Yes, sir." "Do you have your own space? Your own possessions?" "Yes, sir." "Has Mr. Blackwood ever struck you?" Thomas's eyes flashed with anger. "No. Never. He's been nothing but good to us." "And your mother, Mrs. Blackwood? Does she seem happy here? Or does she seem controlled?" "She's happy," Thomas said through gritted teeth. "We're all happy." We're together. We're safe. We're fed. What more do you want? Whitmore made a note. Defensive. Possibly coached responses. After 2 hours, he assembled Jonas and Catherine in the kitchen while the children waited nervously in the living room. My preliminary assessment, Whitmore said, tapping his notebook, raises several concerns. This household is crowded. The children show signs of having been coached on what to say. The marriage appears to have been rushed, a union of convenience rather than genuine affection. And most concerning, there's a significant age gap between Mr. Blackwood and several of the children, particularly the girls, which raises questions about appropriate boundaries. Catherine stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. How dare you? How dare you come into our home and imply? I'm not implying anything, Whitmore said calmly. I'm stating observations. Now, I'm not making any immediate removals. But I am recommending a follow-up inspection in 30 days. And I'm noting that if conditions don't improve significantly, the Bureau may need to reconsider whether this placement serves the children's best interests. What conditions? Jonas demanded. What exactly needs to improve? Whitmore stood, gathering his papers. More space. Better organization. Evidence of proper moral education. And perhaps most importantly, evidence that this family unit is genuine and not simply a legal arrangement to circumvent child welfare regulations. After he left, Jonas and Catherine sat in stunned silence. It's Rutherford, Jonas said finally. It has to be. He's behind this. But why? Catherine asked. We're married now. The children are legally yours. What does he gain? Satisfaction, Jonas said grimly. And maybe he thinks if he can prove the adoption was fraudulent, he can reverse it. Get his hands on those children anyway. That night, after the children were asleep, Jonas rode into Redemption Creek. He found Sheriff Anderson at the saloon, finishing his evening rounds. Tom, Jonas said without preamble. I need information. The Territorial Child Welfare Bureau. When was it established? Who funds it? Who runs it? Anderson frowned. That's an odd question. Why? Because an inspector showed up at my ranch today threatening to take my children. And I don't believe in coincidences. Anderson's expression darkened. Let me ask around. Quietly. Give me 2 days. 2 days later, Anderson rode out to the Blackwood Ranch with news. The Territorial Child Welfare Bureau was established 6 months ago. It's funded by concerned citizens through a charitable organization. Want to guess who's on the board of that charitable organization? Rutherford, Jonas said. And Hyde, Anderson confirmed. And about 6 other businessmen who all profit from child labor. Jonas, this isn't about welfare. It's about supply. They're using official-sounding government authority to identify families in vulnerable positions, then removing children and placing them in approved homes and businesses. It's legal child trafficking disguised as child protection. Jonas felt cold rage settle into his bones. Can you prove it? I'm working on it. But it's going to take time. And in the meantime, they can make your life hell. Constant inspections. Finding violations that don't exist. Building a case to reverse your adoption. Then I need to stop them before they build that case, Jonas said. 3 weeks later, Inspector Whitmore returned for his follow-up inspection. But this time, he wasn't alone. With him were 2 territorial marshals, a court clerk, and Josiah Rutherford himself. Mr. Blackwood, Whitmore said with barely concealed smugness. I'm afraid my initial concerns have been substantiated. I have here a court order authorizing the temporary removal of the minor children pending a full review of your adoption petition. Catherine appeared in the doorway, the children clustering behind her. No. You can't. We have rights. You have no rights that supersede the welfare of children, Rutherford said, stepping forward. Mr. Blackwood, you rushed into an adoption you were not prepared for. You took on responsibilities you cannot meet. It's time to acknowledge that and allow these children to be properly placed. Thomas pushed past his mother. We're not going anywhere. Son, one of the marshals said, not unkindly, we don't want trouble. We're just doing our jobs. Your job is kidnapping children. Margaret said, her voice shaking but defiant. She held baby William tightly. That's what this is. Legal kidnapping. Whitmore produced paperwork. These are removal orders for all 7 children. They will be temporarily housed at the Redemption Creek facility while new placements are arranged. Over my dead body, Jonas said quietly. He didn't move. Didn't reach for a weapon. But something in his voice, in his posture, made everyone in the room recalibrate their assessment of the situation. Mr. Blackwood, the first marshal said carefully, don't make this worse. We have the law on our side. Do you? Jonas asked. Let me tell you what I've learned about your Territorial Child Welfare Bureau. It was created 6 months ago by men who profit from child labor. Inspector Whitmore here. He's not a government employee. He's a private contractor paid per child removed. The charitable organization funding this operation. It's a shell company owned by Rutherford and Hyde. And those approved placement homes you keep mentioning? They're mining operations, factories, and brothels. Whitmore's face went white. That's slander. I'll have you. Have me what? Jonas interrupted. Arrested for telling the truth. Go ahead. Try. Because I have documentation. Financial records. Letters. Testimony from families whose children were taken and never returned. I have everything, Whitmore. Everything. He pulled out a thick folder from behind his back, Sheriff Anderson's investigation, compiled over 3 weeks of relentless digging. Josiah, Jonas said, turning to Rutherford, you made a mistake. You targeted my family. And in doing so, you gave me a reason to look at yours. At your operations. At your business practices. At every dark corner of your empire. Rutherford's face had gone from red to purple. You have no authority. But the territorial governor does, Jonas said. And I sent him a copy of this file yesterday. Along with a personal letter. You see, Josiah, I'm not just a mountain man with a silver mine. I'm also a veteran. I served with the governor in the war. We saved each other's lives more than once. So when I write him a letter explaining that someone's using fake government authority to traffic children, he listens. He looked at the marshals. Check your orders. Really check them. Because I'm betting that when you look at the signatures, you're going to find they're not actually from any legitimate authority. The marshals exchanged glances. One of them examined the paperwork more closely. His expression changed. Sir, he said to his partner, these seals, they don't match the territorial court seals. They're forgeries, Jonas said. Good ones. Professional. But forgeries nonetheless. Which means you gentlemen are about to commit kidnapping under color of law. And that's a hanging offense. The marshals stepped back from Whitmore and Rutherford immediately. Rutherford realized the game was up. His face twisted with hatred. You think this is over? You think one file changes anything? I have resources you can't imagine. I have connections that had, Sheriff Anderson said, walking up the porch steps with 6 armed deputies behind him. You had connections. Past tense. Because as of this morning, the territorial governor issued warrants for your arrest, Josiah. You, Hyde, Whitmore, and 12 other members of your charitable organization. Charges include fraud, child trafficking, forgery of government documents, and about 40 other crimes I don't have time to list. He produced iron shackles. Josiah Rutherford, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent, though based on the last 5 minutes, I don't think you know how. As the deputies shackled Rutherford, Whitmore, and escorted them away, the fake inspector screamed threats and promises of lawyers and revenge. But his voice faded as they dragged him down the road toward Redemption Creek's jail. Catherine collapsed onto the porch, pulling all 7 children into her arms. They were safe. Actually, finally, truly safe. Jonas knelt beside his family, because that's what they were now, undeniably and completely his family, and let himself feel the fear he'd been holding back. They'd come so close to losing everything. Again. How did you know? Catherine asked, tears streaming down her face. How did you know to investigate? Because I know men like Rutherford, Jonas said. I know what greed looks like. What cruelty sounds like. And I know that men who try to take children from their families don't suddenly develop a conscience. They have an angle. Always. So I found the angle. Thomas, his voice thick with emotion, asked, "Is it really over?" Jonas pulled the boy into a tight embrace. It's really over. Rutherford and Hyde are going to prison. Their operation is shut down. The governor is investigating every child placement they arranged. And our adoption? It's ironclad. No one can touch it. The children erupted in relieved tears and laughter. The twins hugged each other. Emma buried her face in Margaret's shoulder. James clutched his father's leg. Baby William, oblivious to the drama, just wanted to be fed. And Catherine, looking at Jonas with something beyond gratitude, beyond love, with the kind of recognition that comes from seeing someone's soul and finding it good, said, "Thank you. For fighting for us. Always," Jonas promised. "For as long as I live. Always." That night, after the children were asleep, Jonas and Catherine sat at the kitchen table, single candle burning between them. "I know what you're thinking," Jonas said. "That you have to marry me. That it's the only way." Catherine wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Isn't it? Legally, yes. But I won't force you. If you say no, we'll find another way." "There is no other way," Catherine said softly. "And I don't want there to be. Jonas, you've given us everything. You've been kinder to my children than their own father was. If marriage keeps us together, I'll do it gladly." Jonas looked at her across the candlelight. She wasn't beautiful by magazine standards, thin from hunger, worn from work, aged from worry. But her eyes held strength that no suffering had dimmed. "It's not just the children," Jonas said. "These last weeks, I've been happier than I've been in 20 years. I don't want to be alone again." He took her hand. "I'm asking you to marry me. Not because we have to. But because I want to. Because you're brave and you've raised 7 incredible children. Because when I look at them, I see family. And when I look at you, I see home." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not what men want." "You're what I want," Jonas interrupted. "A partner. Someone who knows how to survive. Someone who knows what matters." "The children?" "All 7. All 7. I'm adopting them. Legally. They'll be Blackwoods. And no one will be able to take them." Catherine cried. Deep, shaking sobs of relief finally released. When she was done, Jonas asked again, "Will you marry me?" Yes, Catherine whispered. Yes, I will. They married the next morning in the Redemption Creek courthouse, the same room where, 3 weeks earlier, their family had almost been torn apart. Judge Thornton performed the ceremony with Thomas, Margaret, and the sheriff as witnesses. The other children waited outside with Mrs. Weatherby, who'd become something of an ally. Do you, Jonas Blackwood, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Catherine Miller, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife. Anne, he looked at the stack of adoption papers Jonas had prepared with lightning speed. I hereby approve the adoption of Thomas, Margaret, Samuel, Sarah, Emma, James, and William Miller by Jonas Blackwood. They shall henceforth bear the Blackwood name and enjoy all legal rights and protections thereof. The gavel fell. And just like that, a family was made legal. When they emerged from the courthouse, Josiah Rutherford was waiting, his face twisted with rage. This won't stand, he spat. This is a mockery. You rushed this marriage to circumvent the law. Actually, Judge Thornton said from the courthouse door, this marriage fulfills every requirement of territorial law. The adoption papers are properly filed and sealed. The children are now Mr. Blackwood's legal sons and daughters. And if you continue to harass this family, Mr. Rutherford, I will find you in contempt. Rutherford's eyes were full of venom. This isn't over, Blackwood. Yes, Jonas said quietly, moving to stand between Rutherford and his family. It is. Go home, Rutherford. Find some other family to torment. This one's off limits. They held a small celebration at the ranch that night. Nothing fancy, just a cake Mrs. Weatherby had sent, and cider, and the children's laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. Thomas approached Jonas as the younger children played. Sir, I mean, Pa, he stumbled over the word, uncertain. Jonas is fine, Jonas said. Or Pa, if you're comfortable with it. Whatever feels right. Thomas nodded. I just wanted to say, thank you. For not letting them split us up. For giving us a chance. Jonas put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You're my son now, Thomas. All of you are. That means you thank me by living well, working hard, and taking care of each other. That's all the thanks I need. As winter deepened and snow piled high, the family settled into their new reality. Jonas taught Thomas everything. Margaret took over household management. The younger children thrived, cheeks filled out, laughter returned, nightmares faded. And Catherine discovered what it meant to be partners with someone. Jonas consulted her about ranch decisions. Valued her opinion. Shared his worries and plans. Treated her like she mattered. One night, as they sat by the fire after the children were in bed, Catherine said, I love you. Jonas looked up from his reading. You think? I'm sure, she amended. I love you, Jonas Blackwood. He set down his book and moved to sit beside her. I married you because I had to, he said quietly. But I fell in love with you because I couldn't help it. You're the strongest person I know, Catherine. You kept 7 children alive on nothing. That's extraordinary. They kissed then. Not passionately, neither was built for grand gestures. But deeply. Sincerely. With love built on shared struggle and mutual respect. 2 years later, Rutherford and Hyde were convicted of child trafficking and sentenced to 10 years hard labor. The territorial marshal uncovered dozens of orphaned children who'd been separated from families who couldn't pay debts. Thomas testified at the trial with quiet authority, helping to seal their fate. The Miller-Blackwood family became something of a legend in Redemption Creek. Thomas grew up to be a rancher, taking over when Jonas retired. Margaret married a teacher and opened a school for struggling families, free tuition, paid for by the ranch. The twins became engineers. Emma, a doctor. James, a lawyer specializing in family law. And baby William became the territory's first child welfare advocate. Catherine and Jonas lived to see their grandchildren, 13 in total, and their great-grandchildren. They died within 6 months of each other, having built something that outlasted them, a family forged not by blood but by choice, strengthened by struggle, bound by love that asked for nothing except to exist. In the Redemption Creek courthouse where their family had almost ended, a plaque was installed, in memory of Jonas and Catherine Blackwood, who proved that family is not who you're born to, but who you choose to stand beside. If this story of impossible odds and chosen family moved you, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to remember that family isn't always blood, sometimes it's the people who refuse to let you face the world alone. Subscribe to Western Souls for more tales of courage, sacrifice, and the bonds that make us human. And tell me in the comments, would you have made the same choice Jonas did? Where frontier justice meets the human heart.